Hey folks, welcome to the Knifeprint Masterclass Episode 4. I'm your host Dennis Tyrell of Tyrell Knifeworks, and today in Episode 4 we're going to go into layers. Layers is probably, to me, one of the most important features of the V2 of Knifeprint. Let's go take a look. So now we're going to talk about layers. And like I said, this is one of my favorite features of V2 because it really opens up the possibilities for my favorite style of knife, which is hidden tang knives. But first, let's go into just one of the last knives that we did. You know, when we did this one, this hunting knife, this full tang hunting knife, you know, we just drew the handle, the front of the handle, and that was okay. You know, when we went to instant water jet quote, or we went to a 3D preview, that really didn't affect anything. The problem is when we start doing hidden tang knives and we want to draw a tang and a handle, they kind of start to get in the way of each other. So that's where layers really come in. So let's go back to projects, and we're going to start from scratch. And we're going to create a brand new design. Well, we're going to recreate one of my old designs, but I'm going to show you guys I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm going to create a Bowie knife because that's one of my favorite knives, as you probably can tell. But this time I'm going to create a hidden tang version. Okay, so it's going to have a guard and a spacer. And what's important now is only draw the parts that are part of the steel. Don't draw the handle as part of your main path. Okay, what I mean is draw the tang. So here I'm drawing the tang of the knife, okay, and then the ricasso, okay, and then like this. And of course that looks terrible, but we're going to fix that up. Okay. Whoa. And like in previous ones, I do like to mostly use the symmetric handles for this. Okay, so there's pretty close. All right. All right, so that's pretty close. I think it might be a little. Let's just take some measurements here just to make sure we're not. Okay, so it's 1.25 inches. That's a little big. How wide is this? Yeah, we're 1.5 inches. So let's make it a little bit smaller. Love that feature of the multi-select. And now we can make the ricasso just a little bit smaller. All right, so let's make our tang a little bigger here. Okay, so now also part of the blade portion, anything that's blade related, like the bevel and the false edge, I'll usually like to make part of that. So let's add those. So first we'll do our false edge. And we'll do our bevel. Whoops. One too many nodes there. All right, and then we'll all right. Whoops. Being picky and just trying to get this looking really nice. All right, So there's our blade, okay, with all the aspects of that. Now let's start with the handle. And I could just go and draw the guard and the spacer and all that stuff here. But instead of doing that, I want to add a layer. So over here on the right, this slide out menu shows layers, and every one of your designs by default are going to have one layer. And if you just keep drawing, everything will be on that one layer. What we're going to do is hit the plus up here, and we're going to add a new layer. You can rename this by hitting the little pencil here, and we're going to call this layer fittings. Now you can go and add as many layers as you want. If I wanted to have the guard on one layer, the handle on another layer, you can do that. And really, if you want to interact with them independently, or more importantly, you want to print them independently, because let's say you had, as part of the guard, you also had a top-down version of the guard that you could place on your stock to cut it out. Maybe you want to be able to print that separately, and you want to size that along with the version of the guard that's in this plane. So that's another reason why you might want separate layers. We're going to do everything on one layer. So now that I've created that layer, I'm just going to hide this. And you'll notice that this has become the active layer. So when I float over this, it's not highlighting anything for me. I can't select anything because it's on a different layer. So if you get into this, oh, nothing's working, it's broken, make sure you haven't created a layer and it's become the active layer, or there's a layer that you didn't think is active is now active. I can just click through the different layers here and it'll move this active layer stamp in the corner, because now you'll see that I can float over things and select things. But let's go to our new layer, and we'll collapse this because we don't need this right now. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here, and now I'm going to draw the guard. So for my guard, I want it to be just a little above the spine. We're going to come down. It's going to drop a little bit here. Okay, probably about here. There. And you'll notice that my ricasso is off a little bit. We're going to fix that in a little while. First, let's just take some measurements, because I want this to be about 3/8. So it's 0.27 right now. So let's make that a little wider. Let's do this one. Okay, so right there. That's how wide I want it to be. So we'll just, yep. Okay, this guy, I want a little curve here. And then all of these, we're just going to move down a little bit. All right. We're just going to add some nice shape to the handle here. And this is where I actually want separate handles, because I want this one to be a little shorter and this one to be a little longer. Okay, it's not quite long enough here. All right, just being a little picky here, but that's kind of what I want. Something like that. All right, now let's add a spacer, because maybe I want a fancy spacer here. And then I like to just zoom in on, zoom in on these just so I can get them nice and lined up. Okay. Okay, that actually looks pretty good. Let's check our measurements. Make sure we're not okay. So it's an inch. That's pretty good. So now I've kind of got this. Well, let's just use the center tool. That's pretty good. I'll show you that feature I was going to show you in just a second. So now let's draw the handle. So for the handle, I'm going to start here. Okay. Obviously, we're going to fix this up. Okay, these are way out of place. Okay, so now I'm running into the back here, and instead of resizing, it's another feature that I want to show you. So I can use the move tool. That will move things. The problem is it's only moving this layer. Well, that's not really what I wanted, but the folks at Knifeprint have given us this cool feature, move all layers. So now I can just slide this over. Okay, I'm just trying to put a little more sculpting on my handle here. All right. All right, so that's pretty close to what I want. Okay, let's reset the zoom. So you notice it's centered only on this layer. If I go back and go here and then center, it's centering on this layer, which is kind of a cool feature. Let's go and fix up this. Because I drew a straight line from a point here to a point here, I know that that's straight. I can now fix my ricasso just to be there. So now it's perfectly straight down that line. I can see that, well, let's just reset this. I can see my tang is a little off, so let's just, okay, that's a little better. But looking at this, I don't like the way the handle is very straight to the blade. Okay, what I like is I like my handles to drop a little bit more. So yes, I could drag all the points down, or I could even multi-select and move them down, but then I'm going to have to rematch all these angles. There's got to be a better way. Remember that pivot tool that we talked about in the last one and I told you we would get back to? Now's where we're going to use that. So let's go back to our fittings layer. And now I'm going to use the pivot tool. It's put a little dot in the center, and this is where your pivot is. So I want to move that pivot, and I want to put it right where the ricasso is. So I'm just going to go there and double click. Now, if I tap and drag, okay, now I can rotate that layer across that pivot point. Okay, that's a really, really cool feature. Because now, if I want my handle to drop a little bit more, it's really easy. And then I'll go back to my move tool. Okay, I don't want to move all layers now. I just want to move my handle layer. Maybe pull it back just a little bit. I really like it when the spine is in line here from the handle to the spine. I think that looks pretty good. So now the only thing I need to do is go fix my ricasso. So let's go back here, make this the active layer. We'll zoom in a little bit here. Now we can just match this up with the line. Okay, and because I'm doing this, let's say, well, maybe we want to change our bevel. Okay, I think that looks really cool like that. I can see I got a little issue here, so I'm just gonna flip back here and change this. There, because I like things nice and even. All right, let's reset our zoom. Okay, well, I see that the tang is a little off, so we got to fix that. Recenter our tang, but that's really easy because I can just select those 2 points and just drag them and then do that. Very cool. So now I can play with things, and I've actually done this in designs where, you know, I made the first version of the design and I thought, man, I really wish the handle would drop a little more. I can come right back to Knifeprint, make that little modification for the next version of that knife. So just another thing I like to add, this is going to be like a Coke bottle style handle, so I want to just draw that effect in here. Whoops, I forgot to. You have to double click on the last point when it's not a closed curve, and sometimes I forget to do that. And lastly, oh, what did I do? So I went and drew that on the wrong layer. I really wanted this part to be part of the handle. What do? So I can go to that path, right click, and you'll see that we have 2 options here, move to layer or copy to layer. Well, I don't really want to copy it, but I'm going to move it. And now you see I can't select it, but it now appears on our handle layer. Okay, very cool. Let's make this, we just need to make a little modification on here. There. Now, let's see what does our design look like without the handle. So now we can go down here. All right, that's what it's going to look like. Okay, and of course you could make your main layer disappear as well. All right, so very cool. So what else could we do with layers? One of the really interesting parts is to be able to export them. Obviously, yes, I could export this as a PDF and I'd have both of these layers on top of each other and I could cut it out over this layer, but then of course I'm going to have to print it twice and print these separately, and it's just can be a pain in the butt. So what you can do is, whoops, not import, sorry, export. I'll just give it a little of a margin here. Now I have this print each layer in different page. When I do that, okay, we'll call this class 4. Okay. Now this is a pretty big knife, so it did split it across these 2 pages, which is fine if that ever happens to you. I just cut this, lay it over top of that and tape it, okay, which is really easy. But it's put my handle on a separate page, everything in this layer. So if I had kind of my guard and then the vertical version of my guard, if I had a really detailed spacer, if I was doing a katana and I wanted the seppas and exactly where the hole is in the seppa, which is the spacers, or any other really detailed layers, especially where you're going to have the top-down view of these fittings, which is really useful sometimes because then you can size them exactly the same. So it's really nice to be able to print them on separate pages. So let's go back and look at our design. The only thing we're missing is a pinhole. Okay, I do want it on, actually I'm going to put it on this one. Okay, and I want it to be, whoops, 1/8 of an inch. Let's zoom it in here. And I'm just going to make sure it's centered. I want it, yeah, right there. Okay. Let's call this one done. What happens if you have a project from V1 before layers existed? How do you convert a project to use layers? I think you probably know because I kind of already showed you, but I'm going to go to one of my older designs. And in this one, it's pretty much the same knife, except this one is a through tang with a pommel and a pommel nut. Okay, but if I open up the layers, you'll notice it's only one layer. So let's add a layer. Again, we're going to call it fittings, just because I'm not very inventive. Now I have to select this one as the active layer because I need to start selecting these paths and moving them. So one by one, I'll just select the paths, move to fittings, move to fittings layer. And okay, and you can see that everything has been moved, because if I just hide this, okay, or if I hide this, either way, you'll see that everything is on the right layers. Okay, so really easy. Now this version of my knife is set up for layers. Again, just to test it, I could export it. Okay, I'm going to print on different pages. I'll use the same one. And we see that, okay, there's my knife, and there's the handle, fittings, pommel nut. Okay. So very cool, folks. Layers are probably the best addition to Knifeprint in V2. If you do a lot of hidden tang knives or more complex knives with a lot of pieces, layers are the way to go. When I did the katana that I did on my channel about 9 months ago, I wish I had layers because there's so many little fittings to that, to those builds. I hope this edition of the Masterclass series was helpful and you learned a lot. Remember, there's a code to get 25% off to your first Knifeprint subscription. Thanks, folks. We'll see you on episode 5.